Hey, everybody, I'm John Halpin. Welcome to the Friday, August 28th edition of the Fox Sports Fantasy 15 podcast and Google Hangout. I'm here with my buddy Adam Meyer, and we're about at week 3 of the preseason. I was going to say regular season. I was wishing it was the regular season.
We all do.
So everybody looks like most teams, other than the Packers, I'll talk about that in a second, are going to play a half or so this weekend. Starters play into the third quarter. This is sort of the final time for the starters and most teams to be on the field for extended periods of time. The Packers basically said they're packing it and sitting everybody out. They don't want any more injuries. They're done. I don't know who's Scott Tolzien's going to play quarterback. They have some offensive line issues, and they don't want to. They want to protect Aaron Rodgers. Basically, everybody's going to sit on the bench and be in plastic bubbles, and no one's going to touch them. But I don't blame them. But that's the way it is. So this weekend, lots going on. What players are you, from a fantasy standpoint, are you most excited to see?
Well, it's got to be Pat Devlin, right, of the Cleveland Browns, the new quarterback. No, I'm joking. I'm going to go with Funchess because, whenever you have a rookie, especially in the skill position area, coming up into the pros, you always want to see how his skill set translates into the NFL level. And with him now having to be one of the main targets for Cam Newton, it's really interesting to see how that rapport goes. And I think that with him, there's not a lot of competition there. Obviously, you can have Philly Brown and probably Greg Olsen stealing some targets as well. But, yeah, I'm really interested to see Funchess. And then another rookie, Aguilar, for the Eagles. Whenever the Eagles are running up and down the field, you'll want to know who's getting the ball because they're going to score a lot of points. They're going to be putting up a lot of yardage, and you want to know who's going to be touching the ball. And I'm really interested to see who factors in because they have a lot of targets there in Philadelphia as well.
Yeah, we call him Corey Brown down here now, by the way. He's not Philly anymore. So
sorry, I still know him as a Buckeye, though.
I know you do. I just wanted to make sure you were clear. All right. Yeah, Funchess is really interesting, a really interesting guy to watch because Ron Rivera said this week, people don't seem sure exactly how that receiving core is going to shake out, and people were wondering if it's going to go get somebody. There were some Reggie Wayne rumors. But Rivera actually said, well, he basically plays the same position as Kelvin Benjamin. He's going to run the same routes. And you hear that, you think same targets like last year. Now, maybe not same exact, but similar role, you would think. And he's not physically, he's not the same guy. He's a big receiver. He's not as big as Benjamin. But, I really want to see how Funchess plays. And he's supposed to be back on the field after missing last week's game. The other guy I want to see, Tevin Coleman on the Falcons.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be a position battle, him and Devontae Freeman, and both of them got hurt. They both hurt their hamstrings. They've been out all month. Freeman, we're not sure about tomorrow. I haven't heard anything new. He's sort of up in the air, but Coleman's going to play. And Coleman's a guy, I've been very stubborn. I've been sticking him in my rankings. I have had him at RB21. I haven't moved him because since Freeman hasn't basically been on the field to take control of that job, I felt like, well, Coleman's I still think in a head-to-head battle, Coleman's got the better chance just because of the type of back he is. Freeman seems like more of a change of pace back to me.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Coleman. I hope he actually gets some meaningful time here. I don't think they'll overwork him after the injury, but I really want to see that one a lot. Okay, everybody. Before we move on, if you like our podcast, please subscribe. We ask you all the time. Please do it. People are doing it. We appreciate it. We want more of you to do it. You can do it on either iTunes or SoundCloud. Also, if you're on Twitter, Adam and I love to answer your questions. It's a big draft weekend for everybody. So he is at Fox Sports Meyer. I'm at JHalpin37. Ask away, and we'll help you as much as we can. All right, Martavis Bryant. The report I saw now, he's looking at a 4-game suspension. Everybody loved it coming into during the preseason. The guy, he gained weight, he's shredded, he just looks awesome. Now, I read something about multiple marijuana tests. These are all alleged. I don't know the details because the suspension hasn't been announced, and they usually don't say what the substance is anyway. What do you do with Martavis Bryant?
Man, you boost Marcus Wheaton, that's for sure. I had him at receiver 85. I think he jumps into the top 50 now. Being that Bryant's going to miss likely 4 games. And in Pittsburgh, it's all about having that connection with Roethlisberger. And while it's hard to boost Antonio Brown anymore, especially for you, I know you have him number 1. I have Bryant as my number 1 receiver. I don't think I have him as number 1 overall, though. And I think that if you could boost Brown, Brown jumps even higher in the rankings, and I think that Wheaton gets a big boost as well. And I think that Martavis Bryant, you got to drop him to probably down to where I had Wheaton, so into the 80s now, being that he's going to miss 4 games.
Whoa, that's a big thing. I've only moved Brian into down into the 30s, further to the 30s. I'm still, once he gets back, I think he'll catch touchdowns. It's just, this is people who are really fired up about him have to be disappointed. I've got Wheaton up to 43. I agree with you on him because that's going to be an offense. They throw a lot. This is I always say this. These are not my dad's Steelers. So, they throw a ton, and I think Wheaton's going to – I mean, Roethlisberger was saying good things about Wheaton in the preseason anyway. It's not like Bryant had a lock on this and Wheaton was going to kind of sit on the bench. They were all going to play. Roethlisberger said if there was a breakout candidate on the team, it'd be Wheaton, and everybody who liked Bryant went. What is he talking about? So, Wheaton gets a bump, definitely.
But also, you got to think with Bryant. I mean, he's going to be behind the 8 ball considering that they have Hayward Bay and Sammy Coates still on the roster. So it's not like he's just going to walk in and take that second or third job right when he comes back from suspension.
Yeah, I would actually – I know some people are thinking week 1, Sammy Coates could be a flyer. I was reading one of the Pittsburgh papers today, and they basically suggested Hayward Bay would be the third guy early on instead of Coates. So don't get too fired up about Coates yet, assuming that comes to pass. I wrote about running back handcuffs yesterday. Are you a cuffer, by the way?
I only do it when I have like the top 2 or 3 picks in the draft because I want to protect my high investments. So with Jamal Charles, I'll try to reach on Knile Davis, and while it's really hard to do with Adrian Peterson because you don't know it's going to be McKinnon, Asiata. Same for Lacey. I mean, you could go James Starks, but I think that for the most part, Knile Davis would be the only one I'd really reach for this year.
Okay, so aside from Knile Davis, if you got to pick a favorite handcuff for people, who would it be?
Being a Denver guy, I think, and also because the guy is going to be ridiculously cheap, Ronnie Hillman is probably. I know that I just saw that you put him high on your list too, but being that everyone was big on Moneyball last year, and he had that little injury. C.J. Anderson comes in and steals the show. I think that there is zero job security in Denver unless your name is Manning because you can easily be replaced in that offense. And I think the same thing goes for C.J. Anderson. If you spend a top 10 pick at Anderson, which I still would recommend, I also think that you got to put Ronnie Hillman behind him because everyone's saying how much they love Ronnie Hillman this year in camp. And I think that you can get him for basically nothing in your draft, and I think that's going to be a solid investment to protect for your Anderson pick.
Yeah, I'm with you. Ronnie Hillman has gotten to the point. Ronnie Hillman this week, I think Mike Kliss in the Denver Post said he's 1B to C.J. Anderson's 1A. Moneyball's kind of not in the mix. So Ronnie Hillman's an interesting late round dart throw, whether you're cuffing or not. But I agree with you. I'm kind of liking Matt Jones on the Redskins just because the more I see him, I kind of like him. But Davis is on my list too. I'm not talking about people who are going to get third down roles anyway. Just sort of the guys who are going to basically sit until the guy in front of them goes out. So those are sort of the big 3.
So you're eliminating Ryan Matthews right out of the gate because I think that'd be another decent one too if you spend a high pick on Murray.
Yeah, but the thing is, Ryan Matthews, people are going to pick him in the 7th or 8th round anyway.
Yep.
I think I have him in my top 35 at running back. Whether or not DeMarco Murray gets hurt, Ryan Matthews has a somewhat of a role. I mean, I think they're going to not rotate every other series, but I think Matthews could play 1 out of every 3 series for that team just because of the fast-paced offense. I still think they're going to manage Murray's workload because of this fast-paced offense. They're going to, he's not going to be on the field all the time.
Right.
So
one more that I would highly consider though, especially if you're a big fan of Todd Gurley, is get Trey Mason. You're just someone that's he's going to start the season as a starter anyway, and eventually when Gurley gets that workload and takes over, you still have that insurance with Gurley because you got to spend like you're doing with Matthews. You got to probably spend a 4th round pick on Gurley. So I think that getting Mason because Mason you can get towards the end of your draft anyway.
Yeah, his ADP wise, Mason's about round 9 right now. So that sounds bad. I mean, that's a good, especially if you get Gurley earlier on. That's a good one to take because you're going to have a strong running game covered. All right, you did a 10 bold predictions article.
Oh, great! I'm going to hear it now, aren't I?
No, they're supposed to be bold. They're not supposed to be for the faint of heart.
Exactly.
However, your first one, Victor Cruz will lead the Giants in receptions and yards? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Are you clairvoyant about an Odell Beckham injury?
No. The key to making a bold prediction, there's 2 things. First of all, you got to leave yourself a lot of outs. And that's why I said he's going to lead the Giants in receptions and receiving yards. I'm not saying Odell Beckham's going to get hurt or have a terrible year. All Cruz needs is 1 more yard and 1 more catch than Odell Beckham. And I ran down the list when I was trying to give everyone some data behind my lunacy. And the thing is, if you look at the top 4 rookies that had amazing receiving years, obviously top of the class is Randy Moss. He had over 1,300 yards, 17 touchdowns. Second was Beckham, over 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns. Third, Anquan Bolden, 1,300 yards, 8 touchdowns. And then 4th was Terry Glenn, over 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. Only Randy Moss was able to get more than 700 yards the next season, and he surpassed his total. And, of course, Randy Moss is probably going to be a Hall of Famer. But I think that the chances are more likely than not that Beckham is going to dip this year. I mean, obviously, he had a phenomenal rookie season. It's going to be really hard to match those numbers. And I think with Cruz, I mean, it's not like you have some generic run-of-the-mill guy that's came out from injuries to take his spot. Cruz is a legit number one receiver in that offense. And I think that if he's there, coverage is going to shift more towards Beckham because they saw what he did last year, and they're going to make Cruz kind of prove himself in that offense. And I think that Eli's going to be like, hey, if you're going to leave Cruz one-on-one, I have no problem throwing to him. I have all the confidence in the world with him. I want a championship with him. I'll give him the ball. And I think that could lead to some big numbers for Victor Cruz this season.
All right. That happens. I'm going to be one happy guy as a Giant fan, but let's see. Next up, Russell Wilson will throw 30 touchdown passes. You're buying into the Jimmy Graham presence there, I bet. Absolutely.
And I know that last year he only had 20 touchdown passes, so 10 more could seem like a big boost. But the 2 seasons before that, he threw 26 touchdown passes. So with the addition of, I really like Tyler Lockett, the rookie that they signed there, I believe, from Kansas State.
Yeah, me too.
And then also Jimmy Graham, again, it's funny because you kind of could see how that one play at the end of the Super Bowl really is eating at Seattle. You sign potentially the best red zone threat in football, so that you never have to make that decision again. Hey, if we're at the goal line, sure, you can still give it to Marshawn Lynch if you want to, but if you want to throw the ball, you're going to throw the ball to Jimmy Graham, and that's right. It. And Graham, he averaged 11.5 touchdowns in the past 4 seasons. Granted, I know that he was in more of a passing offense with Drew Brees, but I just saw so many Seattle games where Russell Wilson would do that read option to the right, and he'd have the ability to either give the ball to Lynch, he would keep it for 8 to 14 yards, but now he's going to have that ability to throw to Jimmy Graham in the flat. And man, that's almost going to be like a Madden cheat, having those 3 options. And I think that Graham's going to have a great season. I think that Wilson's going to have a great season. And if anyone's going to suffer, it's going to be Lynch, because they're going to throw the ball more than run the ball.
All right, next up. I don't think that one's far-fetched at all, by the way. I think that's a good bold prediction. Not that the other one wasn't good. I like the other one. This is I think this one has more likelihood of happening. Next up, Brian Quick. You wrote Brian Quick will emerge on the fantasy scene. I've got Brian Quick at, I think, 43 or 44. 44 on my wide receiver list. I like Brian Quick. He's a nice receiver. I mean, and as my usual refrain is, I know there's Mason and Todd Gurley once he gets healthy, but someone's got to catch the ball, right?
Exactly. And that's the thing. I think that if you don't work in the fantasy world like we do, you're not really hip to Brian Quick. And I think that with us seeing what he's done in the past, I know that he didn't have a tremendous season. He had that near career-threatening injury last year where he hurt his rotator cuff. But still, if he would have played out the rest of that season, if you just kind of add on to what he had there, he would have had over 850 receiving yards in an offense that really wasn't great. And I think that now that you have someone like Nick Foles at quarterback, which loves to throw the ball, my biggest concern is going to be their offensive line and having that ability to run the ball. So if they can give you a little bit of a running game and if that line can just protect just enough for Foles, I think that, like you said, someone's got to catch the ball in St. Louis. I know they have Kenny Britt there as well. You have Tavon Austin there, and I think there's Stedman Bailey as well. And I think that with Brian Quick, if I had to bet on one guy, I'm going to go with Brian Quick.
All right, me too. And I don't think you just picked him because he's from down near your old stomping grounds, having gone to App State. But,
no, not at all. North Carolina, not at all.
All right, last one. This was an interesting one for me. Okay. They're bold predictions, like we said. Nelson Aguilar will be the top rookie wide receiver. As an addicted Amari Cooper drafter, this disturbs me. Tell me, what do you think? Nelson Aguilar. I love Amari Cooper. Tell me the path to Aguilar being better than Amari Cooper.
See, again, leave yourself some mouth. I didn't say that that Amari Cooper is going to have a terrible season or catch under 1,000 yards. But they also, I know Michael Crabtree isn't great, but they have someone that has been a number one receiver before in Crabtree. And I think that with Philadelphia, I know that their number one receiver, Jeremy Maclin, he's not there anymore. They have really Riley Cooper, Josh Huff, Jordan Matthews kind of becomes the number one receiver there.
Yeah.
Miles Austin. There's no one really that stands out to me as that's the number one guy. And I think that Aguilar, being the player that he is, he has that potential. And if you look at last season when Jordan Matthews was a rookie, he had 872 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. If I just get that from Aguilar, I'm going to be happy. Now, granted, Cooper could have 1,000 receiving yards and only like 4 or 5 touchdowns, so it's going to be really hard to say how that balances out. Do you go with yards? Do you go with touchdowns there? But I think that it's going to be close. I like Aguilar this year, and that's because of the offense that he's in.
All right. Yeah, I've been drafting Cooper as much as I can, so I like Aguilar. I really do. I think Jordan Matthews steps up, though. I think he's a stud. I really like. I think he's going to have a big year. All right, Adam, what else you got going on?
Still towards the end of fantasy baseball, so I'm giving you some DFS picks on that. 2-start pitchers coming on Sunday. We're almost in fantasy baseball playoff mode, so I'll be giving you kind of some streamers to look for when you're looking for your 2 pitchers to target for week 21, I believe we're approaching right now. So yeah, and then fantasy football, like you said, biggest draft weekend is going to be this weekend and next weekend, being that those are the only 2 weekends left. New fresh rankings drop next week. Always hit us up on Twitter if you need advice, especially in the keeper formats, being that I'm heavily invested in some keeper leagues right now. I'm loving it. I have my first big draft for it on Saturday, so we'll see how that pans out. Someone actually, I'm at a conundrum here because 2 people are not going to keep LaShawn McCoy and DeMarco Murray in a 3-player keeper league, and all I have is Lamar Miller and Cam Newton from the previous season. Granted, it's touchdown only, so it makes me want to lean more towards DeMarco Murray in that Philly offense. You agree?
Definitely.
Thank you.
Compared to McCoy, definitely. Absolutely. No doubt about it.
So you've heard it here first. DeMarco Murray will be my first-round pick in my new touchdown-only 3-player keeper league.
All right. Everybody, enjoy your drafts this weekend, and whoever you draft, whether you drafted already or you draft this weekend, we sincerely hope that the letters ACL do not appear next to anybody's name that you draft this weekend. That'll be a nice change of pace. Everybody, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud, and keep watching it on the Google Hangouts if you're doing it that way. Also, if you want to join a league, start a league, do a lot of research for your draft this weekend, whatever it might be, foxsports.com/fantasy. We've been working hard. We hope you appreciate all the stuff we're doing there. But again, go play in a league. If you're not in a league, you want to go mock draft, go there now and do it. You can do it anytime you want. The mocks go quickly. They'll help you practice for your regular draft. They're great. We're going to be back with another podcast on Tuesday, so please come on back. And again, enjoy your weekend and good luck in your drafts. For Adam Meyer, I'm John Halpin. Thank you for listening to the Fox Fantasy 15.